9:45 a.m. 1/25/2016. Hello again. My last video I was talking about the hobo soup. And my mom is who taught me how to do this. My mom was a whiz-bang in the kitchen. Please believe this. She could take a nothing cut of beef. And I was just telling my son this like last night in Messenger. She had this kitchen tool. Probably a lot of people don't even know what they are anymore, but I believe it was called a meat mallet. And it had the hammer end of it, which was kind of a marbled hard plastic, like a hammer handle. And then the top end was like a silver cube, a solid cube of aluminum or something that had the squared ends. Each end was a different texture. And she had two of these pull-out cutting boards. She had good kitchen cabinet. She didn't have this kind manufactured, assembly line cabinetry in her house. That house was built in 1928, and it was, goodness God, cabinets were custom. And aside from all the great things about them, it had the cutting boards that you pull out. Well, the one on the left was strictly for meat. Okay, the other one on the right, it was for pastry. And she was strict about that. You've got to be, have a certain amount of strictness in your cooking, or you're going to get someone messed up. But she would put her meat out on that cutting board, and I believe she probably would line it, to save some cleanup or something, but she would pound the daylights out of that inexpensive cut of beef, mostly beef. She did do some pork every once in a while, but it was back then when she watched the ads, and Sunday ads, Wednesday coupon, whatever, Wednesday ads, and she could get a nice roast. Back when it was 79 cents a pound, if you can imagine. That's the 70s prices. But she would, like I said, meat tenderized with the meat mallet, pound that old meat until I think she about was tired out of it. Then she had this product called Adolph's Meat Tenderizer, which she would rub in too. And a video I watched last night, I mentioned it in the last video, she mentioned, and she had come a long way in her life from being a day trader and the husband who was the superintendent of schools, and all the way down to him having to retire with a broken foot, and them living very frugally and even beginning to dumpster dive. And she made those squash that looked kind of blemished, and she scraped them in her video to prepare them, made them look really nice. So I mean, it's not like you're putting something really grody down in a pot and expect to feed it to people and they like it and, go away happy. It's prepped. And a lot of people, many people, have no fear of that. But of course, some people are still to get over the gag factor, the gag reflex they'll get from that. They don't, see the upside of it. I can, but as long as I'm doing fine, I won't have to do that for now. For now, anyway. Hard telling what next, but anyway, the cheaper cut of meat, as she had mentioned, will be just fine if you tenderize it. Okay, and I caught that last night in her video, which was very interesting when she had made a nice pork roast with the carrots and potatoes and the homemade yeast bread and some other broccoli, cauliflower, pepper dish that she wanted to make pretty, so she took some time with that to do so. But my hobo soup, now here's the thing. I've made this and made this and made this, and my mother, like I said, was a whiz in the kitchen. Total genius, that woman. Where's mine, you know? Where does that trickle down? Taught me this soup. And you just take like your leftover beef, if you did a boiling beef, or leftover meatloaf, or any kind of leftover. You can mix pork and beef just fine. But don't try to mix fish in with it, please. I'd never heard of such a thing. It'd probably just totally screw it up. You can put some sausage down in there, leftover sausage. I haven't tried it with bacon, but there's never any leftover bacon around here to speak of, so unless I cook ahead and then just want to nuke it for 30 seconds so I can slam a couple strips on a slice of bread, half slice of bread with 2 strips on it, and eat it like that with nothing else. No tomato, no mayo, no nothing, just that. Basically the bread's to hold it so my fingers don't get greasy. You know, that kind of thing. Anything in that soup. If you go out to eat, and I've done it repeatedly, I used to stop up near Tipton after I do my little shopping up there when I lived in Otterville up in central Missouri. And there was this little restaurant on 50, I think it was near Syracuse. And they had, and I'm not kidding, the best hamburgers anywhere. They were thick, they were juicy, they were fresh tasting. And I would stop in and get one of those. And mostly they were huge. They weren't these little dinky things you get through the drive-thru, you know. They were plump, juicy, close to Mom's home cooking burgers as I'd ever seen. And I'd always get everything pretty much on the side, because what I like to do is cut my burger on a bun diagonally. So when I have a big order of French fries, which I got up there, a huge amount of wonderful French fries, and I'd only eat half of my burger, well, there wouldn't be a bite taken out of the other half, you know. It's eat half, take the other half home in a box with whatever French fries. Well, I don't like warmed over French fries, but the wildlife like French fries cold. Or my son too. He would, if he'd see them, he'd grab them. Pardon me and this stupid cough and cold and stuff. So then I could warm up my burger, but I would dress it at the table at the restaurant after I cut it, so that things didn't go galley west and sideways. You know, when I cut it and everything would be sliding. And okay, so I'd get my pickle, lettuce, tomato on the side. And normally I wouldn't put lettuce on my hamburger. I don't usually like it that way, only sometimes. And cut my tomato to fit the halves, you know, slice the tomato slice in half. Put it on each half. And my little pickles. If I didn't have one of them on my burger that time, I just eat them. You know, stuff them in my mouth and chew them. But then the rest of the hamburger would still have the stuff on it already. But see, that stuff will make your bun soggy. And I never could appreciate a soggy hamburger bun. So it's best to leave it off there. Just take your box of stuff home. You know, but then sometimes I would get home, think of my hobo soup. Here, we're back to this finally. Sorry. I would take my onion. I didn't say onion earlier. I said pickle, lettuce, tomato, but also onion. Dice it up in my bag of hobo soup. If I didn't really want my burger, I would just take it off the bun and cut it up into my hobo soup. Same way with a tomato. There was some left, into the soup it goes. And you keep adding to that until you have a full large zipper bag full of leftovers of your hobo soup. Alright. Same with the gravy I mentioned earlier at the restaurant. I would sometimes get extra gravy. You know, especially request the waitress to put it on the side so I could dip my, like, Texas toast or something in it. Take it home. Spatula it into my Ziploc of hobo soup for the flavor. Any other little thing, pieces of steak. Of course, I would give any bone or fat to the wildlife. Throw it out for the dogs. There were several dogs that ran free out there at the Otterville house. Cats. They like somebody to throw them something every once in a while and treat them like they're cared for, like they're a person. If you drain a can of peas, green beans, corn, butter beans, anything like that, you drain it into your hobo soup. A lot of the time I would have just the bottom bit left of ketchup or barbecue sauce. So I'd fill it with a little water, put the lid on, shake it, dump that in my hobo soup. Maybe even rinse it again if it was thick, you know, still on the sides and could stand rinsed again, because it's all good. All that is so yummy. I never liked to cook with mushrooms, so I didn't put any of those in. I would put some leftover cabbage if I had that, just a little. Bradley always liked his hobo soup with some leftover pasta. So if you had leftover spaghetti with meat sauce, you could cut that up into smaller bite-sized pieces. You wouldn't want this large stringiness in your soup, because when you go to ladle that up, it'd be splashing and stringing along and have to hold your arm way up and get that all out of there. So just cut it up, slide it off in the soup with the spatula. And yes, spatulas are awesome. If you've got to clean out a mayo jar or a peanut butter jar or a can of ketchup, you know, to do your refills, those spatulas will get so much out of there. Chocolate sauce, oh man, so many things like that. Let's see, what else would we put in the soup? My mom would probably add a bay leaf, some celery. You know, you get the celery, you feel like having peanut butter and celery sticks like I sometimes do. And you get just bored with it after you've had it for a week. So you cut that up into your soup. And you freeze all that until, like I said, it's full. Then you get it out, run a sink full of water, let it thaw for a little bit, because normally the sack is going to crumple when you set it back into the freezer. And when it does, the contents will get a fold of the plastic bent into it. And if you go to try to get your chunk of soup out of there, you're going to tear your bag. Well, it might be okay with you, but if it's still folded up in there in a wrinkle, it's going to end up in your pot of soup, and you don't want that. So thaw it out first in a thing of water to loosen that up from the sides. And I'd sometimes, when I'm done with that, I would just zip it back up and stick it back in the freezer and start all over again.